I will tell you about the terrible anger of Captain Kelly, and may the angels inspire me to tell all the story correctly, of the quarrel between Captain Kelly, bravest of all the men at Gallipoli, and his commander, General Agnew-Menning. Of the terrible anger that Captain Kelly nursed against General Agnew-Menning because of the insult done to him, and of the terrible suffering inflicted on the Allies by the wilfulness of these two proud men. But how did the quarrel start? What dark spirit moved these men to dreadful hatred? It was no demon that sowed the quarrel between them, but the archangel Jeremiel, who is the giver of true visions. General Agnew-Menning had ordered his artillery to shell a mosque, which he believed might offer the Ottoman a good vantage to survey the Allied line. The archangel Jeremiel was furious at the destruction of a place of worship, and sent a plague of rats into General Agnew-Menning's dugout in punishment for his impiety. The rats scurried everywhere, spreading filth over every surface, and they carried pieces of human corpses into the dugout, which they gnawed on in the open until chased away. They ate through all the papers, clothing, and bedding in the dugout, so that General Agnew-Menning's blanket was full of holes, and his mattress was wet with rodent urine, and the stench of rat almost prevented one from entering the dugout. At the end of the third week, General Agnew-Menning called a conference to decide what to do about the plague. When his officers had assembled before him, he spoke. "This situation is intolerable. These rats have caused me no end of grief, and I have barely had a wink of sleep for 3 weeks now. Tell me then if any of you have any suggestion as to what can be done to relieve this dreadful situation." And Captain Kelly replied, "Sir, it seems that your dugout is the only one that suffers from this plague. I've spoken to officers up and down the line, and they tell me that there are no more rats in the trenches than usual." "Do you suggest, Captain Kelly, that this is my fault, that my dugout is overrun with vermin? Do you say that I alone of the English officers here at Gallipoli cannot organize to keep my dugout clean? Stuff and nonsense. Something else is clearly at work here. My dugout is low. It sits in the bottom of a gully. Your dugouts are high in the lees of ridges and hills. It is pure impertinence for you to suggest that I cannot look after my own dugout." "General Agnew-Menning, many of our dugouts sit low in gullies, even as some of them sit high in the lees of ridges and hills. But let's try to think of some treatment for the situation you're now in and find some way to control these rats of yours." "So now I am to take advice on maintaining my dugout from you. The best solution there would be that I exchange dugouts with you, Captain Kelly, or with Captain Sears, or Captain Ahia, and you can find some treatment for these rats while your superior cogitates on more important matters." "You arrogant man! You would swap dugouts with those who serve you so solidly so that you could sleep comfortable and dry while they clean up the filth you and your staff officers have left in your own trenches? A general who would behave like that has no respect for his men. He would be no English officer, but some Arab sheikh who keeps slaves, not men for soldiers." "I will take your dugout then, you insolent colonial! Of all my officers here at Gallipoli, you are the one who gives me the most difficulty, constantly questioning my orders and speaking with insolence and disrespect. I am no colonial. I am from Victoria, I and my men, and we come to this place far from the sheep and dogs of our farm back home as Australians. And when we Australians have stood on the firing step, we've been shoulder to shoulder and kept Johnny Turk from our wire countless times. And when the whistle has blown, we've clambered up the ladders and run at him faster than anyone else on the line. But now you treat me with such contempt. Why should we do these things anymore? The Turk have not invaded our land. We chose to come here out of respect for England and our king. But you have no respect for us. Take my dugout and humiliate me. But if you do this, why should I keep Johnny Turk from the wire when the alarm sounds? If it were my choice now, I'd let the Turks have no man's land. We'd see how you came back in sorrow at the shameful way you treated me." "Now you are more than insolent. You speak insubordination and mutiny. No one would blame me now if I was to have you court-martialed and shot. Your unsoldierly pride would be intolerable for any officer." It was then that Colonel Nestor rose to speak. Colonel Nestor was the oldest officer at Gallipoli, and he had served the British Empire through 3 generations of younger men, and all had the utmost respect for his wise counsel and his valuable and interesting reminiscences, which at all times he was happy to share at length with his noble comrades. Colonel Nestor stood between the two and spoke. "Here, here! What a shame this is! If the Turks could hear you two now, would they not howl with delight? This does not become British men to fight like this amongst ourselves when the enterprise is in such peril. Believe me, it was not like this at Balaclava when we fought beside the Turks, and showed them how a British officer conducts himself even in the most difficult of circumstances, and provided for the Turk that model of soldierly behaviour of which I think we all agree. He has been a fine and able student, as we see now. Nor in Sudan, where I served under General Kitchener, who listened closely to all my advice and valued my counsel highly, for he is a gentleman of the highest quality, and where I also met young Winston Churchill, now First Lord of the Admiralty and general author of our expedition. Did Englishmen quarrel like this, but stood shoulder to shoulder in their squares, and kept their faces straight towards the screaming dervish foe? Therefore be advised by me, as you are both younger than I. Captain Kelly, do not always clash with General Agnew-Menning. It cannot go well for a captain when he stands against a general. If General Agnew-Menning wishes to exchange dugouts with you, it would be best to do so without complaint, for the most valued subordinate is the one who does what he is asked without complaints or contradictions. And you, General Agnew-Menning, do not talk of court-martialing Captain Kelly. He is the most able of your officers, and though he may be vexatious in confidences, you know him to be a fierce and tireless soldier on the battlefield. Do not do anything rash, which would deprive our expedition of Captain Kelly's service, and leave his men ill-disposed towards you. Therefore let the words of Captain Kelly pass by, and do not dwell on them, for colonials are by nature hard, abrasive men, well suited to taming foreign continents and fighting on the line, but ill suited to the company of gentlemen." And General Agnew-Menning replied to him, "What you have said, Colonel Nestor, is fair. But I have my position as commander to think of. How would it be if I allowed every officer beneath me to speak so rudely to my face? But as to your advice, I will not court-martial Captain Kelly for now. But he and his men shall move from their dugouts down to the ships, and I and my men shall take their place. Captain Kelly and his entire battalion shall have no part in the coming offensive, but shall spend their time carrying stores, while other men achieve honour and fame. And his men shall remain at the ships until Captain Kelly apologizes to me before a conference of my officers for the shameless way he has spoken to me." At this, General Agnew-Menning dismissed the conference, and Captain Kelly went to his dugout and conferred with Captain Patricks, his best friend amongst all those at Gallipoli. Neither Captain Patricks nor any other officer of the Victorians condemned Captain Kelly for his words, but rather they nursed a sore resentment when they heard how General Agnew-Menning had spoken. Now, the Archangel Raphael was greatly disturbed by all that had happened, and especially that Captain Kelly and his men had been withdrawn from the line, for Raphael feared for the allies if Captain Kelly did not take part in the battle, and so Raphael flew to the side of the Archangel Gabriel, the messenger of God, and the wisest of all the archangels, and said, "Wise brother Gabriel, the allies are in grave danger at Gallipoli because Captain Kelly has been withdrawn from the line. I fear that Captain Hikmet of the Ottomans will inflict a terrible punishment on them. Why then does the great God, who is Lord of all, seem to favour the Ottomans, who are the allies of the German cause?" And Gabriel replied, "Raphael, guide to the learned and wise amongst men, The Lord God has not yet revealed his intentions in this matter, so I do not know yet whether he favors the Ottomans or the Allies." And this was true, for great God, who is Lord of all, had not yet revealed his intentions for the armies at Gallipoli, that the Allies would have no victory, yet neither would they suffer defeat, but after much misery and suffering on both sides, the Allies would withdraw. To Gabriel's words, Raphael replied, "Then I will help the Allies, for I judge their causes honorable, and they seek by this campaign to end the war sooner, which is a noble end to fight for." And Gabriel replied, "But Jeremiel, the giver of true visions, helps the Ottomans, for he judges the Allies to be invaders, and the Turks are pious men defending their families and their homes. In matters such as this, when the Lord has yet to make clear his mind, the wisest choice is to patiently wait for his guidance. But I cannot wait unmoved when so much is at stake. Therefore I must follow the choice which I believe is right, and support the Allies in their struggle." "Then you will be standing against Jeremiel in this matter." "What of Michael, the sword of God? What is his judgment?" "Michael judges that each party has equal justice on their side. That being the case, he supports the Ottomans, for as the sword of God, righteous battle is his nature, and as the Ottomans are defending their homeland, he feels they have a moral advantage, and therefore, all other things being equal, he will assist the defenders." And with this, Raphael flew back to Gallipoli to make preparations for the next day's attack, and to put heart into all the soldiers in the Allied line, so that they would not be overwhelmed by the Ottoman army and the formidable Captain Hikmet.